guys for tuning in to our very first episode ever of the Mimi and Wheezus Show.
Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to talk about our best friend Brandon in our first episode.
This will probably be what we call our most important episode. Brandon is our best friend who we lost in a tragic accident about a year and a half ago. And we kind of just want to cover, how we've been coping and what we've been doing with our grieving process, I guess. Um, a lot of people have experienced stuff like this, and there's no right way to grieve. So we kind of just want to give our experience on it and hear other people's advice and experiences. So we thought we would start with him for our first episode because he's kind of got us to where we are today. And we can probably credit him for the majority of all our accomplishments this past year, to be honest.
He showed us like how to be brave,
How to
how to
have
be
fun.
how to have fun, not to have a stick up your butt, and just enjoy life in general. Maybe when I was younger, when I met him, I didn't understand. I didn't understand that he was just trying to that carefree attitude, just trying to show us that you know life goes on, life is easy, and you can do what you can do. You can accomplish stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't always about taking everything so seriously and taking everything to heart. It was, you know, we go to work and there maybe we have to act like that, but afterwards, like, live. Like, do whatever you want. Have fun. Get drunk on a Tuesday. Like, it was always, he lived life to the absolute fullest and he loved life. And it sucks for me because sometimes, like, I didn't realize that part until he was gone, you know? I always had the most fun with him and he was always the life of the party, but I didn't get the full picture of like what I just said until he was gone. When I realized like, wait a second. He didn't he didn't live for, working and all of this stuff. He loved that stuff and he loved what he did and he was a hard worker and he did all of that. But there was another part to him that most people would never understand or get to experience. And we were lucky that we did get that. And losing him was one of the worst things I think we'll ever have to experience.
An easier way of explaining it, not just a friend or like a brother, it was like also a mentor. The person
Exactly.
that like gave us advice, like he always knew what to say, even if he didn't actually knew. No. And it would make sense in the moment, but then he'd be like, bro, I didn't know what I was saying.
Yeah, he would give you advice and be like, like, don't be a bitch though. And you're like, wow, like you just gave me the most heartfelt advice. And then you're gonna hit me with that at the end. And he always made everything better. Always. And even if you were mad at him, like you you couldn't stay mad. A couple minutes would go by and you're like, well, oh well, life moves on. And you would just get past it. And all of my craziest stories, and I think yours too, involve him. You know, it was the only reason me and Jesus met is actually because of Brandon. We wouldn't even know each other if it wasn't for him. So
point point we're trying to get across is we both probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Brandon and what he tried showing us when he was alive.
yeah, and I agree. And both of us were in really tough places when Brandon did pass away. And a few months leading up to his passing, we had all kind of, I don't want to say rekindled our friendship because we've always had our friendship since we met, way back in 2014 and 2015. But
It was
we had
back
all
to what it used to be.
exactly, we all met when we were 18, 19, 20. Like we lived our, college days together. Things were crazy. And then we all became adults. Everyone got significant others and new jobs and moved to different states and we all did this stuff and people grow apart in a way. And we still talked on a weekly basis, but things weren't the same old staying up till 3 a.m. and talking about life and doing crazy stuff and going to raves and going to clubs and parties and drinking. It wasn't all that anymore. And the past 6 months leading up to his passing, I think we kind of all got that back. It was me, Jesus, and Brandon. We had our group chats, we had our FaceTime nights, we had planned our trip to go see him. And I think it was September 8th. It was just a few days before his passing. Jesus and I had decided, like, you know what? Let's go see him, like where he lived at. And at the time, I was in a really bad relationship in a bad place, and I was afraid. I was so afraid to go on this trip because I didn't want to make my home life worse. But I had finally agreed to it. And Jesus bought me this ticket for my birthday because my birthday was just a couple weeks after. And we planned this big trip. And a few days later, on September 11th, we get a call from one of our friends telling us that there was, a car accident and Brandon had passed away. And I remember in that moment, I did not believe it. I thought it was a prank. I was like, yeah, whatever. This isn't funny. I just talked to him yesterday. This isn't funny. And I called Jesus afterwards because I had got a few more phone calls confirmed that, this news is real. Like, this is really happening right now. I still couldn't believe it. I was in shock. I called Jesus, tell him. And since that moment, things really changed for us. It was kind of a wake up call, would you say, Jesus?
It was like trying to say like maybe your life doesn't matter. Like maybe other things are more important than what you're going through right now. And I think that's what got me going through what I was going through.
I I would agree. It was kind of like, I was so focused on my own life and the trauma that I was dealing with at the time and just all the chaos that I really didn't look at the outside picture, and remember, hey, all my friends are going through stuff. Like, I need to still show all these people love, like, and attention. And I might not even be here, to be honest. I was in such a horrible place with the situation I was in. Like, I wasn't safe where I was living. I could have gone hurt. I could have, worse. I don't even know. And the experience, like, brought me out of it all. It made me realize, like, hold on, there's a whole world out here that I've been missing. And, like, what am I doing? What am I doing? And I had my friends, I had Jesus, I had Brandon, I had a couple of other friends from school and my parents, but like these two were the ones that I talked to on a daily basis. We had all these future plans, we had all this, and it really just like had I credit Brandon honestly for saving us both in the places that we were at because it changed my life in a horrible way, but it woke me up to realize that like I was wasting my life, you know, if that makes sense.
A good way to a good way to think it'd be like maybe Brandon just saw like potential.
That's what I think. He he saw the potential in everyone, even sometimes the people who didn't deserve it, you know. He always saw that. And he never doubted it in us. Is the thing. Like you could tell him you could literally probably murder someone and be like, "Bro, I killed someone." And he'd be like, "Well, they probably deserved it." He was that friend. He was he was the one of the best people I've ever known. And to have him in our lives for the amount of time we did, I wish we could have him longer, but he did impact us. And he impacted every single person he probably was friends with, to be honest. There's not really a way for anyone to cope with it or to give anyone advice on how to cope with it because really, well, you can't. You just kind of live. And I watched this TV show, and there was a really good quote in it, and he said, death doesn't happen to the person who dies; it happens to everyone who's left behind, and that's the truth. Like it's a kids TV show. I think it's a teenage show, but I've never held on to a quote from a TV show more than that because it's the truth. Me and you and all his other friends and his family and his parents and his siblings, like it's just everyone, like we're the ones who have to deal with Brandon's death. and we're the ones left behind overthinking all the things that could have been and would have been and should have been. And if you knew him, like, you would know that's not what he wants. He doesn't want us here regretting all this stuff. He wants us here to live like he did. And it took us a while through our grieving process, but I feel like both of us are trying more and more every day to honor that.
And on that note, guys, thanks for tuning in. This was our first episode of the Mimi and Wheezus Show, and we're out.
Bye.
Yeehaw, brother.